Narration voice, calm, low, deliberate. Long pauses between sentences, soft but heavy tone. You've noticed it, haven't you? That person, the one who seems just out of reach, not because they don't want to connect, but because they cannot. You wonder why. You wonder why someone so aware, so present in the world carries this distance. You might have felt it yourself, that invisible barrier that hums around them like a soft static, almost imperceptible until you press too close and then it cuts through you. Why is it that those who see clearly often seem unreachable? You ask yourself, is it arrogance, pride, or is it something quieter, darker, something that refuses to be touched? Awareness is not gentle, it is not comforting. It is a weight, a dangerous weight. The more someone understands the hidden machinery of the mind, of others, of themselves, the less they can afford to be simple. You might think you could reach them with words, with explanations, with laughter, with patience. You might be wrong, because those who are most aware, they carry the echo of all they see, every intention, every hidden motive, every small act of cruelty or kindness. It reverberates inside them. And they do not always carry it lightly. You see, to be truly aware is to know that the world is not as it seems. People are not as they seem, even yourself. Even yourself is more complicated than you can bear to know. Do you feel that? That subtle unease creeping along the spine when someone's gaze feels too deep. That quiet panic when a silence stretches too long and you realize they are listening, not just to your words, but to the spaces between them. Some people are unreachable, not because they choose to hide, but because to be reached, to be fully known, would be dangerous. It would burn. You might think that being aware is a gift. Soft laughter, almost like disbelief, perhaps it is. But gifts have weight, and burdens have edges sharp enough to cut. Imagine walking in a room where every glance, every gesture, every whisper is read like a map of hidden territories, where every smile, every small lie, every flicker of fear in someone else's eyes is seen, understood, catalogued. And then imagine trying to speak to that person, to pierce that quietness, that stillness. You wonder if you could even survive what they see. They are not cold, they are careful. Their distance is not cruelty, it is survival. They have glimpsed the shadow, not just in themselves, but in the world. And they have learned that some things, some truths, cannot be shared safely. So you wait, or you try. But there is always this emptiness that stretches between you, like water too deep to cross. And here is the haunting thought. Perhaps the most aware among us are unreachable not because they do not want us, but because we cannot handle them. Not fully, not yet. So you watch from the edges, you observe their quiet, their stillness, and somewhere inside, you know the truth. Awareness is a dangerous power, and those who carry it are never safe to touch. You might never reach them. And yet, you cannot stop looking. Narration voice, calm, deliberate, soft, long pauses, unsettling undertone. You've tried, haven't you? Spoken words that felt heavy in your mouth, only to fall silent against their stillness. You've leaned close, hoping your presence would be enough. Hoped your concern, your attention, your care could bridge the distance. And yet, it did not. Perhaps you thought it was your fault. That somehow, you weren't enough. That you had spoken poorly, or laughed incorrectly, or waited too long or too eagerly. You blamed yourself for their distance. But consider this, the most aware among us. They do not measure connection the way you do. Their silence is not rejection, their absence is not contempt. It is a wall, yes, but it is also a shield. You have felt it, haven't you? That peculiar ache that comes from trying to reach someone whose mind moves too fast, whose heart carries too much, whose soul has wandered through places you cannot enter. And so you wait. You wait for a sign, a gesture, a word that is real and true. You hope for understanding, for acknowledgement, and in that hope, you are not wrong, you are simply human. It is not weakness to desire connection. It is not shame to wish to be seen. You are allowed to feel it, the frustration, the doubt, the quiet sadness that creeps into your bones when they remain distant, because what you feel is not small. It is not trivial. It is heavy, and it is dangerous too. The desire to reach someone like this, it can unravel you, slowly, almost imperceptibly, until you wonder if the effort itself is a form of self-destruction. Yet, even now, you understand something subtle. You feel it in the marrow of your being. That distance is not empty. That silence is not meaningless. They are not abandoning you. They are simply contained, guarded, protecting what must not be touched. You may sense it in their eyes, the quiet judgment, the patient distance. And still, you persist. Still, you try to pierce that silence, not realizing. Perhaps they are grateful for it, even if it burns. There is a peculiar honesty in this, a dark, uncomfortable truth, that someone so aware cannot be reached in the usual ways, that the more you wish to touch them, the more their presence seems to slip through your fingers. And so, you sit with it. You sit with the frustration, the longing, the unease. You do not fix it. You do not change it. You do not have to, because even in your attempts, even in your struggle, there is recognition, a quiet acknowledgement that they are carrying burdens you cannot see, that their distance is a form of survival, not rejection, and perhaps that is enough. Not comfort, not closure, not triumph, just acknowledgement, seeing what is without trying to alter it, feeling what is without trying to tame it. You may think this is pain, and perhaps it is, but it is also truth, a reminder that connection is not always shared, that understanding is not always returned, that some souls must walk alone, even among others. So you breathe. You recognize the ache in your chest. You acknowledge the frustration in your mind. You sit with it. And in that sitting, in that quiet witnessing, you are not weak. You are awake. And though they remain distant, and though you may never cross the space between you, you are seen by yourself. And in this, there is a fragile, unsettling power. Narration voice, calm, measured, low, long, deliberate pauses, unsettling undertone, almost hypnotic rhythm. Inside, you feel it, don't you? That tension, subtle at first, like a quiet tremor beneath the surface. It is not external. It is not caused by anyone else. It comes from within, from the collision of what you want and what you know. You long for connection, for understanding, for someone to enter the silent spaces of your mind and heart without fear, without hesitation, and yet you recoil. Why? Because to be truly seen is not always safe. To reveal the hidden corners of yourself, the thoughts, the instincts, the raw, unpolished shadows, is dangerous. And so the struggle begins. Every interaction becomes a negotiation, not conscious, perhaps, but felt. A balancing act between revealing enough and surviving the exposure of too much. You may not realize it, but every word you speak is measured, every gesture considered, every silence intentional. You move like a careful shadow across a room, aware that even the faintest ripple could trigger consequences you cannot control. There is a part of you that aches for authenticity, to strip away the caution, the masks, the layers of protection, and simply be. And yet another part of you warns you, cautions you, whispers that the world is not safe for such truth, that some knowledge, some awareness, some deep seeing cannot be shared without cost. And so you live in this friction between desire and restraint, between exposure and retreat, between intimacy and isolation. Every decision carries weight. Every choice feels like walking a thin wire above an abyss. Do you feel it? That quiet exhaustion that comes not from activity, but from awareness itself? From the constant calculation, the subtle monitoring of yourself and others, from knowing too much and being unable to let it go. It is not weakness to feel this strain. It is not failure. It is the necessary cost of awareness. Some nights you lie awake, feeling the tension coil in your chest. You replay moments in your mind. Words said, words withheld, actions observed, faces remembered, and you understand. There is no simple path to resolution, no conversation that can erase this conflict. Only endurance. And here is the cruel truth. The more aware you become, the more isolated you are forced to be. Awareness brings clarity, and clarity brings alienation. You see the patterns, you see the motives, you see the shadow, not only in others, but in yourself. And sometimes it is unbearable. Yet you continue to navigate the world with care, to move through relationships like a ghost brushing against walls. You learn to speak softly, to pause, to measure each step, not because you want to hide, but because to be fully seen could destroy. Do you hear that? That quiet alarm in your chest? That subtle, persistent warning that something is always at stake when emotions are engaged. That danger lurks not in the outside world, but in the very act of connection itself. It is a strange, unsettling position to occupy, to desire and yet restrain, to reach and yet withdraw, to care and yet protect. And in that tension, in that quiet, perpetual conflict, you begin to understand the shape of your own psyche. You are not broken, you are aware, and awareness is never simple. So you continue, quietly, carefully. You carry your internal friction like a secret weapon, like a weight that is both burden and shield. And in the stillness you understand, this conflict, this constant negotiation of self, it is what makes you who you are, and perhaps that is all you can ever ask for. Not resolution, not peace, just recognition of the dangerous, delicate balance that lives inside you. Narration voice, calm, deliberate, low, long pauses, soft, chilling undertone, almost hypnotic rhythm. Sometimes it comes unbidden, a collapse, not loud, not dramatic, not the kind anyone else can see, just quiet. A fracture inside you, small at first and then widening, stretching across the edges of thought and feeling. You sit alone or lie awake in darkness, and it begins. The weight presses down. Not the weight of tasks or obligations, but the weight of knowing too much, seeing too clearly, feeling what others cannot bear. And in this moment, tears may form, not because of loss, not because of failure, but because the vastness of your awareness is too heavy for flesh and blood, too sharp, too deep. You do not cry for sympathy. You do not seek validation. You cry because you are human and humanity can be unbearable. Notice the stillness around you, the quiet of a world that continues as if nothing has changed. People go about their routines unaware, and here you are, unraveling softly in the corner of a room no one will enter. Every thought you have is magnified, every emotion amplified. The subtle betrayals, the hidden motives, the fractured dreams, they swirl inside, circling, colliding, pressing against the fragile walls of your mind, and there is no outlet, no release, only observation. And the slow, silent erosion of composure, do you hear it? The quiet sound of your own breaking, not loud, not dramatic, just the faint, persistent echo of awareness demanding reckoning. And it is dangerous. Emotions, when left unchecked in one who sees too much, become sharp tools. They cut, not outwardly, but inward. They carve channels through the psyche, they strip away illusions, they reveal truths too raw for comfort. In these private moments, you may feel rage, not at anyone specific, not at anything external, but at the weight of knowing. at the impossibility of explaining the shadows you carry, at the relentless clarity that isolates you. And yet, there is also grief. A deep, unsettling grief for what cannot be reached, for connections that cannot be forged, for the life you observe but cannot fully inhabit. It is tempting, almost inevitable, to wish it would stop, to wish for distraction, for numbness, for anything that dulls the sharp edges of perception. But you cannot escape yourself. Not really, not ever. And so you sit, or lie, or walk silently in the night, alone with your own depth, your own fracture. And in that silence, you confront the parts of you that no one else will meet, the raw, unmediated self, the self that understands perhaps too well the fragility of others and of yourself. It is a solitary process, painful, uncomfortable, necessary, and you learn, slowly, that emotional collapse is not weakness. It is an acknowledgement of power, the power to feel, to see, to endure what most cannot. And in that endurance, there is a strange clarity, a quiet awareness that this aching, this unraveling, is both the price and proof of consciousness. Proof that you carry more than most can bear, so you allow it. You let yourself shatter quietly, knowing the shards will settle eventually, or not. Perhaps they will always remain. Perhaps that is the nature of someone who feels too much, sees too clearly. And when the moment passes, when the silence settles once again, you are changed, not whole, not healed, but deeper, wiser, sharper. And here lies the terrifying truth. Those who feel and see this deeply, they are never fully safe, not for themselves, not for anyone else. And perhaps that is exactly as it should be. Narration voice, calm, deliberate, low, long pauses, soft, haunting undertone, reflective, philosophical rhythm. You have walked long enough now to sense it, the shadow, not the darkness outside, not the absence of light in the world, but the shadow inside you. Do you know it? That part of yourself you rarely admit exists, the impulses you hide, the fears you deny, the anger that rises without reason, the thoughts that haunt you in silence, unspoken, unshaped by polite words. You may have tried to ignore it, to push it down, to soften it, to make it vanish. But shadows do not disappear. They wait, patient, persistent, observing. And the deeper your awareness, the more you see. You see your own darkness mirrored in others. Every small betrayal, every fleeting malice, every hidden grief, it reverberates inside. You cannot escape it. You carry not only your own shadow, but fragments of the shadows around you, as if the world has pressed them into your chest. Do you feel the weight? It is heavy, sharp, dangerous. And yet, there is a strange clarity in this burden, for in the shadow lies truth, truth you cannot hide from, truth others do not want to see. You may resist it, fear it, reject it. And yet in moments of quiet, you understand. The shadow is not the enemy. It is the part of yourself that knows the world too well, that has felt too much, that has survived what most would crumble beneath. Notice how it whispers. The parts you have denied speak now, not in words, but in impulses, in sudden awareness, in uncomfortable realizations. You see the motives of others clearly. You sense the patterns. You know the lies behind the laughter, the subtle tensions behind politeness, and you feel the shadow in yourself doing the same. It is frightening. To confront the shadow is to confront what you might do if stripped of safety, if stripped of reason, if stripped of mercy, to recognize that within you lies the capacity for destruction, for cruelty, for cold clarity that cannot be softened. And yet, there is a perverse liberation here. The shadow does not lie, it does not pretend, it shows what is real without adornment, without apology, and in facing it, you glimpse a version of yourself unbound by pretense, unshaped by the expectations of the world. Some call this angerous. Perhaps it is, Perhaps it is the most dangerous truth that to know yourself fully, you must see your own capacity for darkness, for fear, for indifference. And that knowledge changes everything. You begin to realize that awareness itself is intertwined with the shadow. You cannot grow without it. You cannot see without it. You cannot endure without it. And those who appear unreachable, they have learned this. They have walked into the shadow and allowed it to remain alongside them. And here lies the unsettling thought: the shadow is not something to be defeated. It is something to be known, witnessed, understood, and contained. For to deny it is to deny life itself. To embrace it is to touch the edge of consciousness. And so you pause, you breathe, you let the weight settle. You feel the shadow beneath your ribs, in your bones, in the quiet spaces between your thoughts. And you know that to walk among the truly aware, to reach them, you must first confront your own shadow, to see your own darkness, to hold it without flinching. Because the most aware are not unreachable because they hide. They are unreachable because they live fully within the shadow, and the shadow is not gentle, and perhaps that is the only way to survive awareness. Narration voice, calm, low, deliberate, long pauses, chilling undertone, reflective, almost hypnotic rhythm. You begin to notice it, don't you? The distance, the quiet space that grows between you, a self, and others. It is subtle at first, almost imperceptible. A hesitation here, a withdrawal there. A glance held too long, then released too quickly. It is not coldness. It is not disinterest. It is protection. You have felt the weight of emotions, of awareness, of truth pressing against your chest, and you have learned there is danger in exposure, and so you detach, slowly, gently, imperceptibly, not because you wish to abandon the world, but because to remain fully present would be unbearable. You notice yourself no longer giving freely. Emotions are measured. Words are considered. Smiles are cautious. You walk among people, but only partially inhabit the spaces they occupy. You speak, but only in fragments. You touch, but only lightly. Do you feel it? That strange clarity that comes when you withdraw. That quiet power of observing without participating fully. There is a strength here, a survival. A recognition that to feel too much, to give too much, is a kind of danger, and yet there is loneliness in this detachment, a coldness that gnaws quietly at the edges of the heart. Not pain exactly, but awareness of the cost, that in protecting yourself, you have built walls that few can scale. And even you sometimes cannot scale them yourself. You may catch yourself drifting, watching from the sidelines, feeling the pull of intimacy, of connection, and simultaneously recoiling. This is the paradox of awareness. The very things that draw you to life, so threaten to undo you. Notice how your interactions have changed. You listen more than you speak. You observe more than you act. You respond, but only when necessary, and in this restraint there is a strange, unsettling clarity. You see things others miss, patterns, motives, contradictions, and yet you remain untouched. It is not a shield against the world. It is a shield against yourself, against the dangerous power of your own emotions, against the weight of knowing too much, feeling too deeply. And you realize detachment is not apathy, it is awareness in action. A careful containment of energy, of presence, of feeling. It is the only way to survive, to remain whole when everything inside and outside tempts you to fracture. Do you feel the tension in your chest? The faint, persistent ache of isolation even when surrounded? It is the price of distance. A quiet toll paid not in drama but in subtle, persistent solitude. And still, there is a power in it, a calm, unsettling mastery. You are no longer vulnerable in the ways you once were. You are measured, observant, untouched, not empty, but controlled, Controlled because you have learned that emotions, your own and others, are dangerous, sharp, capable of cutting through the mind like a blade. You may wonder if this is cold. Perhaps it is, or perhaps it is necessary. To feel everything fully is to risk everything fully, and not all risks are meant to be taken. And so you continue, walking amon. G the living, aware, restrained, detached, observing, protecting, enduring, not seeking approval, not seeking intimacy, only preserving the fragile equilibrium between consciousness and chaos. And in this calm detachment, you find something rare, not warmth, not closeness, but clarity, survival, control, the quiet, unsettling knowledge that the most aware among us are untouchable, even to themselves. Narration voice, calm, deliberate, low, long, deliberate pauses, chilling, reflective undertone, almost hypnotic rhythm. And then something shifts, not with a flash, not with drama, but quietly, slowly, almost imperceptibly. You begin to notice the spaces between thoughts, the silence that surrounds you, the stillness that stretches across your chest. And in that stillness, there is clarity. You realize, perhaps for the first time, that the isolation you feared was never emptiness. It was preparation. A slow, deliberate sharpening of perception, of consciousness, of being. How your emotions no longer control you. They rise, yes, but you watch them. You catalog them. You allow them to exist without surrendering to them. That same dangerous power that once threatened to undo you now hums quietly beneath your ribs, contained, sharpened, alive. You may feel it in your chest, that subtle warmth of authority, that cold certainty that you are enough, not in the world's terms, but in your own. That the distance, the detachment, the endless observation, it was never weakness, it was survival. And survival is power. And here is the unsettling truth. Those who are most aware, they are never dependent. They have learned to stand alone, to endure, to witness, and to act when necessary, without need, without desperation. They carry a quiet, cold authority, a mastery of themselves and their world that is rarely acknowledged. You feel it, don't you? That sudden awareness of your own capacity to observe without attachment, to act without expectation, to endure without complaint, to feel everything and yet remain untouched. It is not joy, not triumph, not relief. It is control, presence, precision, a dark, unsettling satisfaction that you are whole, not because the world has honored you, but because you have honored yourself, and the world, it notices, even if silently, even if indirectly. There is a power in being untouchable, in being aware enough, strong enough, to move through chaos without breaking, to see the currents of others' minds and remain anchored in your own. You may feel a strange calm in this, not warmth, not comfort, but the icy certainty of self-possession, the cold recognition that awareness is both burden and gift, that emotions are dangerous, and that you are capable of navigating both without being consumed. And it is here, in this quiet dominion over yourself, that inner power returns, not like a roar, not like a conquering army, but like a pulse beneath your ribs, subtle, unseen, unyielding. Ng. Ready, you may notice your presence changes, not outwardly perhaps, not in grand gestures, but in subtle shifts, in the way you move through a room, the way your silence carries weight, the way your gaze meets another and holds, without flinching. That is power, quiet, cold, controlled, and it is yours. And here is the haunting clarity. No one can give it to you. No one can grant it, teach it, or bestow it. You earn it, in solitude, in observation, in endurance. in the careful containment of emotion and the full confrontation with shadow. And so, you walk forward, not seeking validation, not needing connection, not chasing approval, only holding this inner authority, this dangerous awareness, this quiet, unsettling power, and allowing it to guide you through a world that is too chaotic, too shallow, too fragile to touch you fully. And perhaps this is what it means to be truly awake. Narration voice, calm, deliberate, low, long, lingering pauses, reflective, almost hypnotic, darkly philosophical undertone. And now, you are here, at the edge of understanding, at the place where awareness meets solitude, where clarity is sharp and loneliness is vast. You may realize you will never reach them. Not fully, not in the way you imagined, not in the way you hoped, and yet you have seen enough to know why. They are not unreachable because they hide. They are unreachable because they have walked too far into themselves, because they have carried burdens that would crush others, because their emotions, their dangerous, powerful emotions, are contained, sharpened, focused, untouchable, and perhaps that is the most unsettling truth, that the most aware among us are not lost but distant, not cold but self-contained, not cruel but impossibly alive. Alive in a way that cannot be shared, only observed. You may feel a strange ache in your chest, a mixture of longing, frustration, and awe. That subtle, uncomfortable awareness that some presences are never meant to be bridged, that some truths are too heavy to carry together. And here is the final quiet lesson. Distance is not absence. Silence is not nothing. The space they occupy, the careful, deliberate solitude, is itself a form of communication, not of words, but of being, of endurance, of the recognition that awareness is dangerous and that survival requires mastery. You may try to reach them, speak, touch, share, and yet even your best efforts will meet the same stillness. And that stillness is not rejection, it is truth, a mirror, a reflection of what it means to see too clearly, to feel too sharply, to live with eyes wide open in a world of shadows. And perhaps that is enough, not comfort, not resolution, not closeness, but acknowledgement, witnessing without interference, seeing without grasping, feeling without attempting to tame. There is power here too, a dangerous, quiet power. You understand finally that some people must walk alone, and that you too carry fragments of their solitude within yourself. Do you feel it? That cold, unsettling awareness that connection is not always possible, that understanding is not always returned, that some presences can only be glimpsed from a distance, never fully entered. And in this awareness, there is a peculiar calm, not warmth, not reassurance, not comfort, but something darker, something heavier, a knowledge that the most aware among us are alive in ways you can see, but never touch. And so, you sit with it, breathe, observe, recognize the truth of what has been shown to you, that some minds, some hearts, some souls are unreachable, and that perhaps this is as it should be. And as you leave this thought, carry it quietly, let it settle, let it linger, not in pain, but in understanding, not in hope, but in truth. The most aware are not lost, they are simply elsewhere, and the space they occupy is yours too, if you dare to look, and perhaps that is the way of those who see too much.